This was also something else that Jeff and I dreamt about as children, to one day wrestle each other in a big match, in a marquee match on WrestleMania, and lo and behold, we were able to do it. Earlier on, whenever they wanted us to feud with one another and really to have like a heated rivalry of hatred, like it was a little harder for me. At this point, I was totally comfortable with it, and he was too. We both were. And I really tried to change away from everything that was Hardy Boys. Once again, going back to the tights and doing my own thing. And obviously, storyline-wise, I was making Jeff's life hell at this juncture.
I no longer consider you my partner. And I no longer consider you my brother.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful for Matt. In this match was the first time. I'd been thinking about it for a while, but this spot called the human sandwich with a human body in between two tables, and you break a table on top of that, the table that the human beings land on, and Matt was willing to lay there for me, and I'm so thankful for that. And we've done it several times since then. But just me and Matt, nobody else has laid it.
Do you remember that after you missed that leg drop because we were tight on top?
Yeah.
They were saying, no, cover him, and we kind of been around long enough. I said, no, we're doing the twist of hate. And I ended up taking the chair and I put it on his head and gave him the twist of hate.
No, a twist of fate in the steel.
That was the first time we had done that, but that was also a moment where we like made that call on our own, where they said like, we were getting the call from Gorilla, and we're going, cover him. We're like, just a few more seconds.
When I vividly remember when they said, pin him, I said, F that. Oh my God, I remember that so much. Because my passion, came out of me after that match. My passion for pro wrestling.
It was very cool that we had, an Extreme Rules match, and I think that's very fitting of Team Extreme, the Hardys, and WWE.
And still to this day, man, that is my comfort zone, 100%. Like compared to a regular wrestling match, that's the Extreme Rules match is my comfort zone.
I was very grateful that I was the guy that could definitely use the win in that situation, and I was able to get a win, and Jim was cool enough to do that. It was really good, and looking back at that, that's one of our favorite matches for sure, because once again, it's a marquee match on WrestleMania. What more can you ask for? That's living the dream.
Yeah, and Twist of Hate is definitely a keeper. It has been over the years. Oh, it was a stress. Matt had developed this thing called the Expedition of Gold, and I still to this day, I think there were some inner workings between him and WWE or something. I don't know, but I was going, how could this possibly end this way?
The way you start off, you said, it was such a stressful. Matt had developed this thing.
Yeah.
Because he was so stressed during that time.
Because we had done a 5-hour signing that day before we went to show up at WrestleMania 33, and I just remember all day during that signing, any chance of seeing y'all tonight? Any chance we might see a Hardy return? We're on the first flight to Raleigh-Durham. It's over and over again. We
ended up talking with WWE. The thing was going to work out where we're coming back and we're returning at WrestleMania 33. And just lo and behold, there were no inner workings. I didn't have any inner workings, I promise. And the Expedition of Gold, something we were talking about, is that we wanted to win all of the tag titles. And then we had been the TNA champions. TNA Tag Champions. We left there, we went to Ring of Honor, and we won them. And that is something that we got the blessing of WWE before we did, because we had about a month to saw before we started officially, and it was kind of like a red herring, and we were trying to throw people off. And then that weekend was just so crazy, because Friday night we wrestled at WrestleCon. We did a big signing, and then we wrestled Penta and Phoenix, and we had a hell of a match with those guys. And the next night we had a 30-minute match with the Young Bucks in Ladder Wars, which was a crazy match. We were getting calls from the WWE office like, don't let your brother get hurt. Don't let your brother get hurt, from various people. And we show up at WrestleMania that day. We get there probably 45 minutes before our match. When we walked out through the curtain, it was so overwhelming.
Things are about to be broken. Team Extreme is back! Matt and Jeff, the Hardy Boys are here!
The way it was set up, kudos to WWE, they set it up amazing. New Day out there kind of as a red herring, making you think they were going to enter the match. They changed, they got in gear, and then they announced this last second. And when that music hit, and just people rose, and the excitement on so many tens of thousands, and there was like so many videos from around the world that people were posting of our return, and they were just so excited and so, so happy. It was unreal. I remember walking out, and I was talking about WrestleMania 17 and like taking in the entrance. It was very vivid, this memory. This moment at WrestleMania 33 felt very surreal. It almost felt dreamlike. Like I was looking at the crowd and I could see people like in slow-mo going like, delay. It kind of seemed slow motion, but it was like a dream. It was blurry around the edges as I'm coming out, which was so wild. And then you hear all this and just people, and then it's like this massive ramp that you got to go down. We're like, oh my God, this is like so big, so long. We hadn't seen any of this, and it was just such an overwhelming, amazing moment. That's a top 3 moment for us in our career because it is just so spectacular. And also it's 2017 when information gets around pretty quick and nobody had solid proof or evidence that we were going to be there. There was like only a handful of people that really knew that we were returning.
Yeah, I wrote a song called Obsolete, and it was heavily influenced and inspired by like the idea that I might never go back to WWE. I'll just fade away and classify myself as obsolete, but thankfully I was wrong. I was afraid I wasn't going to be good enough or something like that. So I think I was testing my fate and my faith a little bit the night before WrestleMania 33 because I only went through, I think, 5 tables and took 24 super kicks. So it wasn't too bad, but I was testing something. I was like, oh my God, this is wild, but it was meant to be for sure.
The idea was to come back at WrestleMania 33. We'd do a ladder match. And I said, we have this idea about still going to Ring of Honor, doing something temporary where we win these titles. And it's like we won all these indie tag team titles. We've been the TNA tag team champions for a long amount of time. We could be the Ring of Honor tag team champions. And then he said, oh, well, maybe we can make you become the WWE tag team champions once we get to WrestleMania. And we thought it was a pretty amazing setup as we were doing that. And it's crazy just how the timing of things worked like that. Our deals were up, we were hot, they'd reach back out, and we were able to come to an agreement, and just all the stars aligned. Once I got to 2010, I was burnt out physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, all across the board. And I needed to take care of myself. And I also had to learn how to accept that as you get older, you can wrestle differently and still wrestle, but you can't necessarily wrestle like you did when you were 25 years old. You have to update your style and the way you did things. And the broken Matt Hardy character did miracles for my career as far as telling stories. Once again, we talked about how the TLC matches, we were telling stories in a different way. I was telling stories in a different way with this also. And it did really feel like we were away from WWE, away from home, and we were putting in the work to say hey, put us in the game. We're we're ready to come back home and do some business.
Yeah, I'm just glad. I'm so glad that Matt is a businessman. Because I have no amount of business in me whatsoever.
In 2005, me and Sammy were doing pretty good as far as working the independent scene and getting our name out there. We were on our way to California for a PWG show, which PWG was played a huge part in our careers. And we're on this layover, and I'm just walking to the gate, and as I get to the gate, I see Stone Cold. And he's kind of off on the side trying to be kind of, discreet, but I'm like, I gotta go talk to him. This is my absolute idol in wrestling. Shawn Michaels was the reason I ever wanted to become a wrestler, but once the Ringmaster came to WWE, I was all about the Ringmaster / Stone Cold from that point on. So I turned around and I have to go get Sammy, and I don't know what he was doing. He was just maybe sitting somewhere, and I go, dude, we gotta go talk to Stone Cold. And he's like, what? I'm like, come on, we gotta go talk to Stone Cold Steve Austin. And he doesn't understand what I'm saying. For some reason, he thinks we're going to fight somebody. I need backup in a fight. So as we're walking there, he goes, well, who are we fighting? And I go, what? We're going to go talk to Stone Cold. What? And then I point to him, and he goes, that's not Stone. Oh, it is. So we walked up to him, introduced ourselves as independent professional wrestlers, and he was so cool. We ended up talking for about 10 minutes. He's asked us about our career and stuff like that. And then they called first class, and Mr. Fancy Pants was in first class, obviously. So as he was about to walk away, I go, hey, dude, I got to ask you one piece of advice, anything. And he goes, yeah, just never stop running your mouth. And then he looked at Sammy and goes, that plancha will kill you. So just never stop running your mouth. I was already pretty good at it, but from that point on, man, I would talk so much in my matches nonstop that it became a staple of my act on the independent scene. And then all those years later, around 2012, 2013 or so, Steve had a podcast that I would listen to. And then at the end of the podcast, and this was still me just on the independent scene, doing pretty good again, probably the top independent wrestler at the time. But still, you know, being a top independent wrestler, and I'm making okay money, but I want to get to WWE, so I need to get my name out there as much as possible. Stone Cold's doing the podcast, and at the end of his podcast, he'd always say, if you have any questions, send them in to questions at, you know, Stone Cold, BSR, whatever. So I'm like, oh, it's worth a shot. So I sent him an email reminding him of what happened in 2005 at the airport. And he remembered. He remembered me. And sure enough, exactly what I hoped would happen happened, and he invited me to be a guest on his podcast. And at the time, it was crazy. The amount of attention that got me being on Stone Cold's podcast was wild. And at the end of his podcast with me, talked about an hour and a half. And at the end of his podcast, he goes, you know, Kevin Steen, Ring of Honor champion, this and that. I think WWE should give this kid a shot. And sure enough, I got a tryout not long after that. And less than a year later, I was signed to a WWE contract. And the next time I saw Stone Cold, it was backstage at WWE events. And, you know, we kind of talk about, like, hey, look how all that stuff, you know, look at how it all worked out. Pretty amazing. And then, you know, a few years later, I'm like, I think I need a new finishing move. Everybody's kind of doing power bombs now. So I went and asked Stone Cold, can I use the Stone Cold Stunner? And he's like, yeah, you can. He's like, I'm surprised nobody's asked me before. Go ahead. And in the back of my head, I must confess that when I first asked Stone Cold about it, sure, I'd love to get to use the Stone Cold Stunner. Imagine there's the best finishing move of all time. But I also figured, on the off chance, the very slim chance that he comes back for one more match, obviously, you'd think he'd wrestle the guy who's doing the Stunner. And that's exactly what happened. It worked. It worked. Amazing. That was a long game. I played the long game on that one. People will say I was the biggest fan of this guy or that girl or whatever all the time. I was the biggest Stone Cold Steve Austin fan in the world. I will fight anyone who wants to try to challenge me for that title. I was the biggest Stone Cold fan. When he came back in 2003 in Montreal, the Bell Center, I almost passed out from screaming my head off. And then I met him in 2005. Got advice from him that shaped my career. Then I got to be on his podcast in 2012, 2013 or whatever. Helped me get more get more eyes on me. Then got to ask him if I could use his finisher, got his approval to do it, and then wrestled him at WrestleMania. That story is insane, and I can't believe it happened to me. I can't even believe it's real as I'm telling you it, but it happened. It all happened. It's right there on the tape.
There we go. Thank you. Well, first of all, welcome to the KO Show. Thank you for accepting my invitation. I really appreciate it.
For a good year after, I would probably go back and watch, not the whole match, but the moment where the bell rings. I'd have to go back and watch it, and I could watch it, no joke, 100 times in a row.
You're about to see Stone Cold Steve Austin against Kevin Owens.
19 years in the making.
There's the bell. Here we go.
People didn't know we were going to get to see a match when he came out. They just like, Stone Cold's back. This night was made about him. You know what I mean?
The table set up against the barricade. Oh no! Oh, reversal!
And the game plan backfires on Kevin Owens. Austin trying to hoist up Owens. Owens trying to block it.
Oh my God! That is it! That is it! Austin's not getting up.
Oh my gosh.
No holds barred, gentlemen! Oh my God!
Where's Austin taking Owens?
It's exactly what Kevin Owens asked for, and he's getting it.
And the crowd now on the WrestleMania stage.
Steve Austin took the express route to no man's land. Look out!
Austin looking to return the favor from Kevin
Superman's
Owens.
on the stage!
Oh,
It's funny because he would tell me that all the time after, where he's like, I wish they had given me a bit more time to get ready. Because if they had, we could have had a 25-minute classic. In my head, I'm like, we had a classic, dude, you know? But he means like, no, like 20 minutes, just hard in the ring, you know, just me and you, no need to go in the crowd or any of that stuff, like just like bell to bell, just good, like classic wrestling match. I'm like, yeah, that sounds awesome, but man, they just wanted Stone Cold beating my ass, and that's what we gave them, you know?
The steel chair has Austin's name on it. Oh! Took one to his own face!
Owens stumbling!
Stunner! Covered by Stone Cold. 1, 2, 3! The Texas Rattlesnake, Stone Cold Steve Austin!
Man, it was so, people were just so happy. That's the thing I take back from it. Everybody's just so happy to see it, so happy for him, and he was happy. And you know, the cool part too is he gets to share that moment with his brother at the end. That was pretty neat to see. Like, I was back in Gorilla by that point, but I'm looking at the screen and he had mentioned his brother to me a few times as we were leading up to this match, and then I look and I see him and his brother in the ring sharing a beer. That's pretty cool.
This will adversely affect your sexual drive. Devon's headbutt right off the top rope.
We had to top what we thought was untoppable. We thought we had already done it all in the triangle ladder match and a TLC 1. So we incorporated more psychology and we made the run-ins mean more.
You already got 6 in there doing what they're doing. Now you're adding 3 more. How complicated can that be? And you're using weapons, tables, ladders, and chairs. I mean, it's unheard of that you can do something like that and everybody still be on the same page.
This was stress. It became difficult at one point. I remember that day. We couldn't come to an agreement on the actual ending sequence of the match. And we had gotten word that nobody wanted to follow us. We were like, you can put us anywhere you want. We're gonna kill. We're gonna destroy, and nobody's gonna be able to follow it.
Mm-hmm. Hanging from the top, trying to get back under that ladder. Jeff moving the ladder underneath him. For Bubba Ray Dudley. Oh, look at Edge. Oh my God! Edge for the 20-foot ladder with a spear on Jeff Hardy.
In my opinion, this is the second most memorable moment in WWE history. You're never gonna top Hulk slamming Andre at WrestleMania 3. That's the most memorable moment of all time. We talk about WrestleMania moments in our industry. Edge spearing Jeff Hardy in midair had never been seen. Nothing like that had ever been seen before. And to me, that's the second greatest WrestleMania moment ever.
We couldn't hear the people's reaction because the building was so big that it drowned the sound.
The sound goes up.
Yeah, and
sound
so
doesn't come towards us.
And we couldn't hear anything. It was only until we saw it back was when we realized how good it was and that the people were reacting to what we were doing. We just didn't know it when we were in the ring.
I believe that I was the first one to go back through the curtain. And the first person on the other side of that entranceway was Shawn Michaels. And he looks at me and goes, "That's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life." And he hugged me, and I was like, it was an odd feeling to think to yourself that you performed poorly, but having one of the greatest performers of all time, if not the greatest performer of all time, tell you that it was great.
This match was really special to me because Eddie Guerrero was part of it.
He had so much ability. He was a lucha wrestler. He could also wrestle heavyweight style. He was so versatile, great charisma, great character, great look. He had it all. The crowd loved Eddie Guerrero. Eddie was everybody's favorite, and rightfully so. I mean, he did some funny stuff. I mean, he was so good, so entertaining. You know, his spiel with China and all the stuff he did after that, lie, cheating, and stealing, his stuff with Rey Mysterio. He was such a great entertainer, probably the best entertainer I've ever seen.
Oh, in the midsection again, hung up on the top rope.
When you were in the ring with him, he demanded perfection. You had to be perfect. And that's what I loved about Eddie, because everything he did, he never missed a spot. He was always on. And what's amazing about it is he was in a car accident where he actually broke his femur and his leg, and he was told that he might not walk again. And for him to be able to come back and wrestle at this level, several years later, he loves the business so much. He grew up in the business as a child, ever since he was 3 years old. His father had a promotion, and Eddie was a part of it his whole life. And Eddie brought so much to the table. He was so talented. Him and Shawn Michaels are the two most talented wrestlers I've ever been in the ring with.
Just tap out, Eddie. Just make a lock. Just tap it. Wait a minute.
This defined Eddie Guerrero. This kind of match and this kind of finish made Eddie who he is. And that's why I loved it so much. You know, and not only that, but it protected me because he kind of cheated and he won and he was a babyface. So I was able to save face. Hey, his boot came off. What the hell? You know, so it was a win-win for everybody. And that's what I loved about Eddie. He always thought about his opponents too. He always wanted to make sure his opponents got over too, because he knew the business in and out. He grew up in the business, and he knows that you have to build each other up to be superstars. And that's the one thing Eddie taught me.
Eddie Guerrero outsmarted Kurt Angle.
Eddie and I had a couple of fist fights. Eddie and I had a brother relationship. There was a night where my faction got a little stiff with him, beat him up outside the ring, and he came backstage, went into Gorilla, and he was mad at me. He's like, "Why were you guys so stiff with me?" I said, "Eddie, it wasn't me." And he's like, "Yes, it was you." We started shoving each other, then we got in a fist fight, and he went to double leg me, and I choked him out. I got him in a choke lock, and someone broke it up. He had so much passion. He cared so much about the business that he would literally get in a fight afterward if someone did something wrong. I mean, he was just, he held everybody in such high standard. He wanted his match to be the best match of the night, every single night. And that's what Eddie demanded every single time he went out there and performed. And usually he did have the best match of the night.
WrestleMania 39. Probably one of the best WrestleMania matches of all time, man. Let's be honest. Obviously, the IC title was the one thing I'm still chasing, but obviously to that point where Drew kind of interfered and put himself in the match. But yeah, again, nothing comes close to the physicality of these matches. Like, it really doesn't. Like, and look, everything is laid in, everything is physical. People see it, you know, and it's like, we literally just beat the crap out of each other. There's always pressure. You always want to go out there and steal the show. I mean, it is what it is. But they're two awesome fellas who I knew would bring it. Just from the crowd reaction itself, I kind of knew. I knew we killed it. I was so happy with that match. That was probably one of my favorite WrestleMania matches of all time.
They wouldn't give me Bad to the Bone by George Thorogood as my music, but anything was better than to come out to a horn of a truck. I mean, I used to think half the time that the things were ribs. Like I'm not gonna sell this. They gave me Pam Anderson for a WrestleMania walkdown. But I mean, Pam Anderson was like, she was iconic at that point. I was like one of the first champions in like forever to come into WrestleMania and leave and like still be the champ. But we weren't on last. So it's WrestleMania, you're the champ, and Lawrence Taylor and Bam Bam were last. That was the story of my career. That close, you know? Shawn's gonna super kick me. We completely lose the people. We tell them for 2 hours during the day, we're gonna lose the people
And then we have to come up with a spot out of this to get the people back. And then Shawn takes the world's worst power bomb to end this match. The most athletic guy on earth takes the worst power bomb. He said he wanted to take my finish, but I don't think he really wanted to take my finish.
I guess, the best characters are always in a little bit of truth, and I think that I've always been hungry and eager. So the idea was more to be like this. I loved wrestling, and I just wanted to be the best. I'm a huge wrestling fan. I used to watch it with my grandpappy, and it was our bonding thing. And then also that was like this #1 fan. Like I was a huge fan of this person, so I kind of emulated them, and I wanted to be like them, and that line where stalking, a fan meets stalking, like overzealous, and like I didn't think I was in the wrong. I just love this, so much. Why can't you see that I love it? And it would kind of toy on that edge. I didn't consider myself the bad guy.
Mickie James, I see what all the other girls are dressed as, but you're dressed like, you look like Trish Stratus.
I am. I mean, come on, who else would I be?
I was excited and I was nervous because at the time, I didn't know Trish. And when I wrote that character and kind of pitched that story, I had pitched it with Lita. And I couldn't have asked for a better dance partner than Trish because we just had this organic chemistry together where we just bounced off of each other really, really well. And to be able to do the story with her when she, especially at that time, was the women's champion, she was the #1 woman. So to be aligned in that space, it automatically leveled me up to her level right out of the gate. So the pressure was on, but it also put me in a different light in hindsight. Like these are these moments where you don't really see it at that moment, but I'm going like, God, I'm so grateful that those other things didn't work out, because would my career had been the same had I not had this be my opening the first time that the audience really saw me on mainstream television, and this whole story, which was so powerful, still considered the greatest female storyline of all time. It made us feel good because it was a testament to the fact that it was working and they liked it, the people liked it. And I appreciate the fact that she was so willing to work with me, right? And like that's what makes it magic when you're two people out there and you're creating this thing together, because one character can do all these things or whatever, but if the other person is not playing ball or even like on the same, like it just kind of can come off very flat. Everyone just was like really into it along the way, and it was like these little nuggets that made it special as it built to that moment. From even the turn at Saturday Night Main Event, it was cool.
The following contest is scheduled for one fall, and it is for the WWE Women's Championship.
Oh, I was so genuinely happy. I was in my moment there. I think that's the only way to kind of get through a moment like that with the 80,000 people out there just going crazy. I'm like, be crazy, Mickie, be crazy, Mickie.
Dr. Phil is looking for your number. This woman is a dangerous psychopath. I think she's past Dr. Phil. She needs to be on the Jerry Springer show here in Chicago.
I'd waited for that moment for so long. I want to say my whole life, but like I dreamed of that moment. If I could bottle that up, it could change the world, right? Like, cause it was that moment of finally, all those people who told me that you're not gonna be good at this, you're too little, you're too this, you're too that, you're too this, and all those no's, to be able to say, I did it. That's one of my favorite things of the whole match, is like that Hangman with her leg over to the floor. I was in my zone there. Like there's real moments, because you get lost with all those people and all those, like when you're really truly invested, you get lost in those little moments. And it was just like this part too, when I kick her knee out and she busts her face on my knee. Aside from my son, one of the greatest moments in my whole life. To be able to say I did it after all that hard work, after sleeping in my car, not being able to afford gas, getting paid $25 to wrestle in front of 30 people at a National Armory. That felt like a true win in my career.
Took me mentally right out of my game. And Mickie James now taking down Trish Stratus. Will it be enough? Yes, it is. champion.
I was overwhelmed, honestly. I was overwhelmed with joy. Like, I wanted to scream, I wanted to cry, I wanted to laugh. It was just a culmination of what felt like a very long, hard journey. I didn't get handed a contract on a silver platter. Like, I scratched and clawed and worked just like the guys that came up like a lot of the guys at that time. There was a handful of really good female wrestlers out there. Yeah, I happen to be one of them.
In her first WrestleMania match, Mickie James has won the title.
I tell you what, if I did feel any way about losing, when I got the check, all of it went away. So that's the only thing I can say about that. I'm probably thinking, can I do this again next year? There's a lot of pressure going into this match, but the story for me was heavily on my mind. I was representing for a lot of people. I just wanted to go out and make sure I left everything in the middle of the ring. That's what I wanted to do more than anything. It was a surreal moment for me being in front of that many people. That's the moment you say, man, I've made it. I've made it. When you're at WrestleMania in front of thousands and thousands of people, you know you've made it. I tell my students all the time that your losses got to be better than your wins, no matter what. And here, WrestleMania, I think my loss was a lot better than a lot of my wins. And even though I did not walk away the World Heavyweight Champion, you know, the street kid, you know, coming from South Park, Texas, that dropped out of high school, ended up going to prison, coming up out of there, and next thing you know, you find yourself in a world title match, Triple H at WrestleMania. I thought that was the biggest win, you know, of my life, making it to that match, because I wasn't supposed to be there.